Today, we do a 2-round rookie mock draft with landing spots. Less than 10 days before the NFL draft starts, we are excited to dive into what the experts think is going to happen and really just start wrapping our head around how this is going to change our dynasty Superflex rookie draft. Stick around for all that and more. And welcome into the Dyno Construction Podcast. Honestly, rookie draft with landing spots from Chad Reuter of NFL.com. Mock draft linked in the description below. It was a lot more fun than I thought it was going to be. And a tale of 2 rounds as far as how we felt about things. How did this change your perspective before we just dive right in of the 26 class? Did it change it at all having some landing spots? And how that changes values?
Yeah, obviously, this isn't how it's going to actually play out, but it gives one simulation, gives a little perspective. And I think my big takeaway was somewhere probably between 111 and 203 or 204, it's really going to drop off, and you don't want to be on the wrong side of that. So you don't know exactly where it's going to happen. I think there were some rough landing spots, especially for that specific range. So I don't think it's going to be quite that bad on the early second as this draft landed, but it is possible, and you don't want to be on the wrong side of that tier break.
Yeah, I feel pretty good about the mid-first, especially after this, and I'm more open-minded that like the 110, 111 could be good. Like maybe the 112 if we're really lucky, which this one I think landed pretty well. So I think that it is possible, but man, does it fall fast after that. So you guys will see the results of that here.
All right, so hopping right in. We have our big board is going to be on the screen, and it's going to be on the screen after every pick. So you guys are able to see the players we are considering. Maybe we'll talk a little bit through our processes throughout. The format is going to be Superflex, tight end premium 1.75, and that is really all the scoring differences. Obviously, it is PPR, because if you don't play PPR, I think you're living a little in the Stone Ages, although I respect half PPR and half points per first down. Honestly, it's probably a slightly more premier way of actually scoring NFL value on the field. So that being said, those are the scoring formats. If you don't play Superflex, if you're a single QB person, lower the quarterbacks down probably 5 to 6 slots in some situations here, potentially more. And again, if you don't play tight end premium, lower the tight ends down. Not a whole lot, a little bit in the first round, but probably quite a bit in the second round. So, that all being said, I'm going to be taking the first pick here, and it's an easy one, and I love having a first pick. It's Jeremiyah Love. He went to the New York Giants. Saquon Barkley 2.0, that landing spot. Of course, they're different teams, but it's that I think if he went there, Harbaugh there now, he'd lean into the round 1 RB. I'd be incredibly excited about this. I don't care where he goes, to be honest with you. There is no place he goes where he's not. When he gets a great spot, duh. If you want to listen to any analytical cases about him, go watch our 101 video that was in our rookie tier series. That being said, slam dunk.
Yeah, that one's an easy one. And I think my 102 here is pretty easy as well, because when you look at the landing spots, for the wide receivers specifically, only one of them was drafted in the top 12. Only Omar Cooper, outside of Carnell Tate, was drafted inside the top 20. So I'm going to go with Carnell Tate. He's got strong draft capital. Here's the first wide receiver drafted. He goes to a room that is wide open. So he is going to be the wide receiver 1 the minute he steps onto that team, in my opinion. And I love that if he does get a high target share, he is going to get downfield looks. So if you give me high target share with high value targets down the field as well as red zone targets, yeah, he'd be very startable in his rookie year right when he starts.
Yeah, JP, I agree with you. I think the way this fell, Carnell Tate's the clear wide receiver 1 in this class, and I think he should go 102. And I also agree with what you were saying about how some of these other guys fell, like Makai Lemon, Jordyn Tyson both went in the 20s. I really didn't love either landing spot either. Lemon to Philadelphia, Tyson to the Browns. For that reason, I'm going to go with Fernando Mendoza. The Las Vegas Raiders quarterback went 101 in this draft, probably going to go 101 in real life. I just think he's the safest prospect at this point by far. Quarterback going in the first round, we've talked about several times, is a very safe dynasty pick. We like the offense. We think Clint Kubiak's a very smart guy. I like the situation he's going to be in. I think, it could be better, but it could be worse as a first overall pick. It could be a lot worse as a first overall pick. I'm going to go with the safety here of the first overall pick at the quarterback position and just see how these wide receivers fall out from 104 to probably 107 or 8, however these next 5 go.
If we saw Tyson in a better landing spot, Lemon, in this situation, we don't have, hey, there was a trade. A.J. Brown is no longer in Philadelphia. So there's the guys that we consider that same tier. We don't that they're either blocked by absolutely abysmal franchise situation or A.J. Brown has not been traded in this situation for Lemon. So don't blame you at all for taking the smart, safe play there. That said, I think that even if Makai Lemon is drafted to the Eagles and they don't trade A.J. Brown on draft night, there is a 0% chance that A.J. Brown is not traded at some point. Maybe it's not before week 1, but it's before long. Because competing with Smith and a young stud wide receiver for targets, he's just going to raise so much hell that he would be out of there. So honestly, I don't even care about the trade because the trade is baked into the situation. There's no way A.J. Brown will self-destruct. And Makai Lemon here, I really do love him being able to operate as a versatile wide receiver with Devonta Smith longer term. Although it's not the perfect offensive situation, we don't think Hurts is the perfect quarterback. I just really think that what Lemon offers to just get open, do stuff with the ball in his hand, etc., is phenomenal, and they will take advantage of it. I think he'd be a PPR machine here.
Yeah, Devonta Smith, he can beat man and press, so he can be the X, and Makai Lemon would be perfectly suited as the flanker. That'll probably be on the field for most 2 wide receiver sets there, so love him, and being in a good organization, I'm totally fine with that there. Now this one's a little bit tough, right? I don't see Ty Simpson up here. The draft capital is good in the first round, 16 overall to the Jets, but I don't think of him as that type of talent to be taken here. Jadarian Price, I'm not a huge fan of, although second round of the Seahawks is really nice. I'm going to look at the wide receivers here, right? Omar Cooper to the Rams. That's very interesting. Sean McVay there, but I don't see him as quite the level of talents that I see like Jordyn Tyson and KC Concepcion. He's close, but I don't think he's quite there, and I think the draft capital isn't that much different to really push me towards him. So I'm actually going to take KC Concepcion. I love his landing spot as well. I love the player as well. If you listen to my guys' episode, Our Players to Target, he was one of my guys because I think he's an awesome talent. And he lands with Josh Allen there, which I've looked since 2020. The Bills have been in the top 10 in passing yards every year before last season. Now, last season, it was fine. They're still in the top half of the league. But most years, they're going to be top 10, if not top half, like every single year, as long as Josh Allen is there. And I still see a scenario where Josh Allen in the next few years, at some point, he starts to run a little bit less because he is north of 30 years old now. And we saw how good Stephon Diggs was with Josh Allen. And KC Concepcion reminds me of that. They're basically the exact same size, like within a pound or two. And they're great route runners. So I think stylistically, they're great. And Josh Allen, he's going to love having a guy that can get open because he has not had that for a couple of years now.
Yeah, look, I think really the way this fell, wide receiver 2 through 5 is pick your poison. I don't mind however you want to sort them. I'm going to stick with my receiver 1 when looking at the board, and that's Jordyn Tyson. I know he went to Cleveland, and we don't love that, but Cleveland's got a lot of targets up for grabs, so I don't love it year 1. Even a blind squirrel finds a nut every now and then, right? The Browns got to find a quarterback eventually. Next year's draft is supposed to be loaded at quarterback. You got to think they've got a shot to find one next year. I feel like long term, this sets Jordyn Tyson up for some success. It sets him up to be the alpha there. I like Concepcion's landing spot. I'm a little worried about the target share. I like Cooper's landing spot. I'm a little worried about the target share. So I'm just going to stick with my pre-draft evaluation because I think all of these, landing spots, draft capitals, they all have their pros and cons. So give me Tyson, baby.
Think you are ecstatic about being able to wait till the 106 and still get your, depending on landing spot, 102. So very happy for you there, David. That said, I feel like this is a tier break for me. And there's really just 2 guys I'm very seriously considering. Sadiq to the Panthers in a 1.75 tight end premium. Omar Cooper to the Rams in a great situation, I think, to be used correctly. Omar Cooper is not a slam dunk prospect. He is a really fun, interesting, and very good prospect that if he is used incorrectly, I think will not have success or will struggle quite a bit. And if he is used to his strengths, I think could be a top 12 wide receiver in the NFL for multiple years, right? And do I trust the Rams to identify and use someone correctly? If they take him, yeah. Honestly, if the Rams take any round one wide receiver, I trust that they know what they are doing in evaluating. This is a guy we want, and this is a guy that we think they can do what we need. Just forget Tutu Atwell, and everything is fine, right? No, like, of course, are they perfect? Will they miss at times? But that's the bet I'm taking, and I think it's a good process bet. And I really do love his production, his athleticism, and it's not necessarily that important that he goes here. Honestly, if he's going in the single digits to early 20s, he's probably a pretty smart play here over Sadiq, I think, even if it's not this juicy of a landing spot.
Yeah, the Los Angeles Rams are always one of the best offenses. So that in itself is a huge selling point for a fun prospect. I think it's a great pick. I'm in between two players here at the spot, and it's going to be Kenyon Sadiq and a wide receiver that I really like, being Denzel Boston. And I actually am going to go that wide receiver way. Now, he did not get into round one, which makes me think maybe Sadiq would be the pick. I think the Rams pick, it's fine, but I love the landing spot for Denzel Boston here because they have targets. I think it's similar to the Browns situation where it's, you're stepping in to a huge target share if you're good enough, right? If you're not good, you're not going to get the targets because they are earned. But there is more upside because Cam Ward, he could take that Drake May year 2 leap. He doesn't have the rushing upside for fantasy, like for the player specific, but as a passer, he could take that huge leap. I mean, we see it a lot of times from these quarterbacks that have a good second half stretch, which Cam Ward did with a poor team. So if he can be the wide receiver one for Cam Ward and he takes the leap, he could have a franchise quarterback for his whole entire rookie contract that supports him more than enough. So I really like this. I think that there's a good floor here because of the targets, and I think the ceiling is also there because of the quarterback there in place.
That's a pretty good landing spot for Boston, but it's still second round draft capital. It is the pick 35, and we've seen several receivers be successful in that draft range still. But I'm pretty happy you left me Kenyon Sadiq. I do think those are the two players to consider at 8 and 9. I think you could consider Sadiq above a receiver or two if you personally didn't like them as a prospect or their landing spot, whatever. I don't love the Carolina landing spot for him, but you're talking about the 19th overall pick. It's an offense that's getting better. I think Bryce Young's ceiling is limited, which caps that offense a little bit, but it is getting better. I think I'm probably not quite as high on Jalen Coker's JP, and that's probably what caused this difference, in my opinion. I do Coker. I don't think he's someone that Sadiq needs to worry about if he's going to hit as a player. And if he misses, you're going to miss some players in the first round. It happens, but this puts him in a position to succeed, and I'm excited to see that. I think that upside is huge as an athlete, sub 440 at his size. If he's in an offense where he's going to be featured, sky's the limit as a tight end. So I'm happy to get him here at 109.
Truly, sky is the limit with Sadiq and his athleticism, but I don't think he's the only tight end that the sky is the limit. I love that pick, and I do love the value at the 109. I was tempted at the 107. In fact, we do this a little bit ahead of time, and in our group chat, I literally typed Sadiq, no J.K. Cooper, or something like that. Like, it really is a toss-up there. So at the 109, phenomenal value. Going in the second round at tight end for Stowers, it is not quite the same thing. We have a round 1 QB. Is that a safer pick than the round 2 tight end in Stowers? Maybe in some ways, but I'm going my guy. I'm going tight end Eli Stowers. I love the Bengals landing spot here. We've been teased and tantalized by what can Burrow do with Noah Fant and Mike Gesicki, who aren't bad tight ends, right? Gesicki's actually pretty athletic. You're saying Sadiq is a freak? Because Sadiq, I think actually, I don't remember if it was long or broad jump. One of those two. Sadiq broke the record. Only minutes later for both long and broad jump to have new records that were Eli Stowers, right? The explosivity of this guy. The top end speed is not the same as Sadiq. I think he was 4.49. So not sub 4.4, but sub 4.5. I am very okay with that speed, right, at tight end. That is still like freak athlete. If Sadiq did not break the mold, right, Stowers would be just raved about. And while I still do slightly lean Sadiq over Stowers at this point, it's close, just in a vacuum. I do think Stowers had better production in college. And if they both get round 1 draft capital, there's a non-zero chance I might even be taking Stowers over Sadiq in some situations. So love taking him here at the 110. He is a no-brainer to me at this spot.
Yeah, I think it's a great representation because I debated having them in the same tier, right? We had that debate. And I think in this scenario, that might be the case. The Bengals, they've been top 6 in passing yards 3 of the last 4 years. And the one they weren't was when Joe Burrow was hurt. So it's a great offense to step into. Now at the 111, I'm going to be between 2 players. It's going to be Jadarian Price in round 2 and Ty Simpson. And I'm going to go ahead and go with the quarterback here because the round 1 draft capital, that tells me that they're in on him, right? They're going to give him a chance. They're probably going to give him half of this year and probably next year to prove that he's the guy. And with Geno Smith being there, that makes me think that they probably would slow play him in that scenario. They've got Garrett Wilson. I think the line is fine. The Jets is scary. Like that is frightening because their track record is terrible. But I'll at least give the new coaching staff a little bit of leeway here that maybe that they can do a better job at the quarterback position. But it is scary, but just given the quarterback value, getting a first-round quarterback here in the top half of the first round by 1 pick, I think the value is going to be with Ty Simpson here for me.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Like I know round 1 quarterbacks, I'm a huge fan of process-wise. This is the scariest spot I think Simpson can go. I think he's probably going to play year 1. I don't think he's ready. And the Jets just have so much ammo that I think they're going to be a bad team. Whether their first is in range of the quarterback they like or not, they're going to have the ammo to go get him. So that kind of scares me if Simpson ends up as a Jet. I just don't know how much security he has. But first round capital, you do love. Either way, though, I'm pretty happy sitting here at the 112 in a position I didn't expect my 112 to be, where I'm getting a guy I think I can probably start as hopefully a defending champion here. Seahawks running back Jadarian Price in the 2nd round. It looks like he's probably going to start. You never know what happens when Charbonnet comes back and is healthy. Even if it's just half that backfield, we've already seen that's a productive player. If it's 60, 70% of the backfield, he's someone you're really happy to start. So I'm thrilled to get him at the 112. I think that's just about the perfect pick if you're a defending champion sitting here at the 112. I don't know how likely it is if this is how it falls out. But yeah, I think you got to be thrilled if you're able to plug that starter into your defending championship lineup.
I definitely would have him at the 111 for sure. Love that pick there, David. Quick round 1 recap. At the 101, Jeremiyah Love to the Giants. At the 102, Carnell Tate to the Dolphins. 103, Fernando Mendoza to the usual landing spot, the Raiders. 104, Makai Lemon to the Eagles. 105, Concepcion to the Bills. 106, Tyson to the Browns. 107, Cooper to the Rams. 108, Boston to the Titans. 109, Sadiq to the Panthers. 110, Stowers to the Bengals. 111, Simpson to the Jets. And 112, Price to the Seahawks. So that wraps up our first round. We're going to do 2. And now, honestly, I looked at this board for a while and I was like, oof. In this mock draft, we see Antonio Williams going to the Jets. We see Dazon Stribling going to Indianapolis to what I feel like is be a big, fast, sacrificial X. Zachariah Branch, who I don't love. Malachi Fields, I don't love. Those are my 2nd round wide receivers. It hit me. I saw Emmett Johnson basically in the 3rd. First pick of the 4th round to the Tennessee Titans, or very early 4th round to the Tennessee Titans. Yeah, that is exactly what I want to do with this 201. And after I noticed that, it was not even particularly close. Now, this is a podcast, my guy. I believe David planted the flag, but JP and him have both been in and on this guy for a long time. He is just twitchy. He's so quick. He's not that fast, long speed, but he's so quick. He's so good in the hole. He is a competent pass catcher. And I think he would be a beautiful safety blanket and asset to a developing Cam Ward. And I think I just absolutely love between the second round wide receiver, the fourth round running back. I love this Tennessee offense at this point and what they're doing with it in this situation, and I love where he fits into it as what I honestly think is a RB2 in fantasy. It's a chance to have upside to increase that over time.
Yeah, Tony Pollard being there, that's probably a player at that point of his career that you could probably jump at some point if you are good enough. That is fun, and they can move on from Pollard after the season if they see enough from Emmett Johnson to trust him. So, yeah, that's a fun spot. Top of the fourth is fine as well. But as you mentioned, the board, it is gross. Good Lord. Like, David, can I trade back a few spots here with you? No? Yeah, I don't blame you here. There's some interesting players that have some bad spots. I'm going to first call it like Jonah Coleman. Love him. But if you're behind Ashton Genty, you're not going to be on the field enough to make a difference. Mike Washington behind Bijan. Nobody's taken that much from Bijan. I know Algier did a little bit of red zone work, but I'm good on that. So at this point, I'm just going to lean on my player evaluations because at this point, there's not a clear, obvious choice to me. And I'm going to go ahead and go with somebody I took in the top half of our second round in our mock draft was Germie Bernard. I took him last time at 206. And the draft capital here, it's a little lower than I want, like mid to early third. But boy, do I love the landing spot here because they have nothing outside of Chris Olave. So I think he immediately comes in as the wide receiver 2. And as a plus, Kellen Moore, if you look at his track record, he's almost always in like the top 3 to 5 in his offensive pace. So the Saints, they run a lot of offensive plays. So that gives a higher target ceiling and a higher target floor as well. Shuck, maybe he's good. But even if he's not, if you have a ton of offensive plays and you're the wide receiver 2, that might be enough to at least get some long-term value and some usefulness as a flex option.
Yeah, it's ugly. This is the point in this draft where it cut off. There was like the 112, I think, was a little dip, and then you got Emmett Johnson, and it just fell after Emmett. I think what I said when we were talking about this was, I think there's at least 12 guys that you could say are a second round value. There's maybe only one that's like not a mid to late second round value, and even Emmett, you could argue the fourth round running back. Probably not an early second in most years. So, yeah, we're looking at an ugly board. We've got 3 running backs we really liked buried behind tier 1 or 2 running backs. We've got, I don't see the receivers falling this way, but the way they fell, we don't really have an attractive receiver. Same with the tight ends. Like, there's some decent tight ends, but the next tight end we want to take is in a difficult spot. I really don't like this player, but I feel like the guy with the most clear path to relevance with somewhat decent draft capital is Nick Singleton going to Jacksonville. I don't love the prospect, but he has shown the ability to run the ball and catch the ball occasionally. Unfortunately, seem to get worse every year at Penn State, which makes me nervous. But this is an offense we really like. It's an offense I want pieces of. It's an open running back room. We think Tutin's probably going to win, especially if this is the guy they bring in the draft, but we don't know that. And if Singleton happens to be the lead guy for Jacksonville, getting him at 203 is a great pick in this draft. Again, I don't love it, but I feel like his path to success is the easiest based on everybody left on the board.
Yeah, he's been a guy I've really been pretty big on, guy I've kind of loved throughout the NFL draft process. He's an athlete. And at running back, sometimes that's enough. I was hoping, and I'm still honestly hoping, is this just a mock draft, that athleticism warrants day 2 capital? And if it does, I'm going to be very in on. But yeah, it's ugly, and he does have a path to starting. Now the board, again, looking ugly. I'm just going to take one of my guys from our My Guy episode. I'm going to take Skyler Bell going to Seattle end of round 3. It's late round 3. It's not early, but it is still day 2 capital, and I just really love the profile on this wide receiver. So Bell, north of 3 yards per route run. One of only 2 guys to do that. The other one is Makai Lemon in this draft class. So Lemon is a much better, well-rounded profile, younger breakout age. I don't blame Bell for his lack of breakout age because he was at Wisconsin, which, although I'm a Badgers fan, they do not understand wide receivers or how to use them. I don't hold him that responsible. And as soon as he got out, he really broke out. So going here with JSN to take all of the first coverage, learn from him, and I do trust that he'll be able to be productive there. Maybe not right off the back, but I think he can develop into a truly flex-worthy wide receiver too, which is not always my goal with the 204, but in this draft class with these landing spots, that's absolutely my goal. Is this a wide receiver 20 to 36 guy? Woo! Some years I'm upset. This year I'm ecstatic.
Yeah, I mean, it's ugly. So to take a player that you like, just lean into the prospect profile and somebody with an opportunity, I don't hate it. Another wide receiver that has a really good opportunity here and got really good draft capital is Antonio Williams, who I'm going to go with here. He's been someone that I have really liked. I haven't talked a ton about him, but I just think he's a really good route runner, and the reception perception profile on him showed that he was 75th percentile success rate against man and 64th against zone. So I think that he does have some stuff to him. He's got good ball skills. He had a freshman breakout at Clemson. He has struggled with injuries, but if you tell me you got a player that has talent, it can get open, and you can be the wide receiver 2 for a team that gets round 2 draft capital, I think I feel pretty good about it when it's a pretty murky range right here.
Yeah, pretty much a dream scenario for Antonio Williams there. Probably, honestly, who I would have taken if he was still on the board there. But you took him from me, so I'm again looking at an ugly board. Not exactly sure what to do. Don't really want to take a guaranteed backup running back at this point, even if I like the profile. I do think Garrett Nussmeier starts to creep into the conversation there, 3rd round to the Cardinals. Really like that landing spot. I think Max Klare to Jacksonville. Don't love the landing spot like the player. Not quite sure about these other tight ends. Do like a couple of the spots they went to. But I'm going to go ahead and take, as we've been doing, we're leaning on some evaluations we like pre-draft. I'm going to do the same thing at wide receiver. I'm going to take Elijah Sarratt going to Dallas. I think he's going to be buried this year with Pickens, CeeDee Lamb, Ferguson, at best going to be the 4th target. But if he can earn Dak's trust in year 1 and they can move on from George Pickens, and then Sarratt becomes the wide receiver 2 there, that is looking very good long term. So in an ugly draft where I don't really know what to do here at the 206, I'm going to take a player that I like in a very good offense and just hope for the best.
I do like that analysis. I think a wide receiver to the Cowboys with day 2 capital probably says they're not planning on keeping everything they have around their long term, although it doesn't necessarily omit it as a possibility, especially round 3. I think it's a worthwhile upside swing based on the fact that most of these rounds, these landing spots are not things I'm super excited about. That said, I do really like Klare, like you said. We've really risen on him just analyzing the quantity or amount which we should really read into his Ohio State struggles based on, it's wide receiver university. They don't use tight ends in that type of way. He's shown productivity, and I think he's probably made a lot of his aspects of his game much more well-rounded in such a way that I think will probably help him get on the field more in some situations. Now, do we like Brenton Strange? Yes. If they're taking a guy here, do I think that they probably have exactly what they had in mind for Evan Ingram when they drafted Brenton Strange in mind? Yes, it's a succession plan. It's a quarterback in Trevor Lawrence with a long-term contract who loves tight ends. So it's a little bit of a bet on the succession plan. Maybe I should take him later. Maybe I should really just try to acquire him 3, 4, 5 months later when people realize he's actually probably buried on the depth chart year 1 behind Strange. But I really do like this spot long term. So while it may not be the most productive spot, although there's a chance he passes Strange if he gets this landing spot, I do think he's a very good tight end. I'm not really betting on that. I'm just betting on it as a long-term value play.
Yeah, at Purdue, he was showing some really great route running. So I think there's upside. I think Brenton Strange originally was a blocking tight end that learned how to receive. I don't think he's got a really high ceiling as a receiver, so I think Max Klare's got him there. And Brenton Strange is in the last year of his contract this year. So I think just betting on the talent, because if you look at the board, it's pretty gross. And I think that with the NFL draft information, people can overreact to draft capital. You don't want to completely throw out all the research and player evaluations. I don't mind that pick at all because it is a good offense as well. And speaking of good offenses, I'm going to go with a player that went to, I think, 1. based on the history of Kevin O'Connell, and that's going to be running back Demond Claiborne, who he was in the running to be around RB6 or 7 for us. He was right around that range, so I don't love the 5th-round draft capital, but I'm in the late second now, the second half of the second at this point. It's a great offense. I think he's a good player, and he's got opportunity there because Jordan Mason, very limited ceiling, is not a pass catcher, and Aaron Jones, very old, and he is just every year he's getting injured as well. So even if he's not quite the starter or have a huge role to start the year, Aaron Jones probably is going to get injured at some point. Unfortunately, it's the nature of the age and the position. But even if he doesn't, I think he could start to earn more work in that rotation and probably have a bigger role potentially in 2027 as well. So I like the talent enough and the opportunity to take the running back here, a position we like to target in this range.
Yeah, I think that's a great pick, JP. I think if this is how everything falls out, I could see him getting steamed up into the early second just because, like we're talking about, these aren't very exciting picks to make here. And this is, as JP mentioned, it's a good offense. It's a good path to production. It's a player that I like a lot. So I think this is a great pick there. I probably would have taken him if he was there because he probably would have taken the guy that I took. And I didn't know who I would have taken between the two. But that's going to be quarterback Garrett Nussmeier going to Arizona. I think this is a great landing spot for him. We would love to see him in the Shanahan-McVay tree. Mike LaFleur, who is Matt's brother. Matt being part of one of the more successful from that tree. Mike has also spent time, though, with both Shanahan and McVay as a coach. So he's taken in that scheme pretty well. He should be able to teach it. We expect Arizona to run it. I think Nussmeier's got the tools to be successful within that scheme. Brissett looked pretty good. It's possible Brissett keeps the job all year and they have another plan by the end of next year. I think it's also very possible that Nussmeier starts, and I think it's possible he looks decent enough to keep the job. If I'm getting a starting quarterback in this draft at 209, I am thrilled. If I'm lighting it on fire, it's not a great draft. So I'm happy with this upside swing at 209. I'm thrilled that Nussmeier's still there for me.
Yeah, those last two picks, like both of them, they were certainly on my radar. And now it's getting interesting for me. This is not a guy that's near the top of my tight end board right now, but when we're looking at Roush, Delp as the only day two guys left, and guys that I think I really like, and Raridon, Trigg, guys like Jolie that we don't even see on the board here in the first 5 in this mock draft, I'm going to be going with the round 2, albeit very late in round 2, Sam Roush. Now his RAS score, 9.94. This guy is an athlete, right? 4.7 40-yard dash, but that's because he a big guy. 6'5", 267, but explosive. 97th percentile composite explosive score. Good vertical and broad jump for the height, right? So he's a big guy. He's on a burner, but 4.7 for a tight end is not terrible. Maybe he's going to be more of a blocking tight end, but we did see some production from him. 49 receptions, 545 yards his senior year here. And he will be on the field a lot, right? He can catch enough. He's not coming off for rushing plays. And it's just a vote of confidence in Sean Payton doing something with him. I don't think he's the athlete to be the Joker type of thing that people always want here. But I think he could be a very good tight end in this offense.
Yeah, he's an awesome blocker. And I've heard that people, and I think it's pretty bold, but they said if he had longer arms that he might even be like the tight end 1 in this class because he's got really short arms. But he has a good enough receiving profile, the athleticism, and the blocking ability. And you give round 2 draft capital, yeah, at that point, he deserves to be in the second round. I think that is a good pick right there. Now, 211, I'm going to target running back some more. And just looking at the board, the players at the running back position that have gone round 3 and 4, oh man, the opportunity is just rough. Atlanta for Mike Washington, Miami, you got Devon Achane there, Jonah Coleman, like we've mentioned this before. They're all stuck behind studs. And they're not getting that starting job anytime soon. Yeah, Kaytron, he's probably going to get some work, though, because Achane is a little bit more slight. But looking beyond that, give me some opportunity for a guy that I think is talented, and that's going to be Jaydn Ott to Houston. Because right now, they have an aging David Montgomery. I think he's probably still got another good year or so in him. And they got Woody Marks, who's also a day 3 pick. And I think Jaydn Ott's got more upside than Woody Marks because I think Woody Marks, he's just kind of a good pass catcher. He's just fine. But Jaydn Ott, before he was injured in his junior year at Cal and then just disappeared to Oklahoma, he was really good. He forced about 100 missed tackles on the ground in his first 2 years. He was a great pass catcher. At his pro day, he was super athletic. So you give me pass catching, you give me athleticism, and you give me a great opportunity for a guy who broke out at a young age in college. I'm pretty excited about that in the late second. Like, I could be burning it on fire, but even if I do, give me a guy who's going to be on an NFL roster as potentially an RB2 even. And if it's RB3, sure, I'll at least hold on to that player in a deep format.
Yeah, look, at this point, taking the next running back you like is probably the smart move. And not to bury the lead, but that's what I'm going to do here as well. And it's a tough board to do that with. But I'm going to push back a little bit on saying none of these guys that got drafted earlier are going to have an opportunity to play. I'm going to take Kaytron Allen, and this is the hope. Miami trades a chain. It's not impossible. We're talking about Makai Lemon. If they trade A.J. Brown, we love that spot a lot more. With Kaytron Allen, if you're going to tell me they're going to trade a chain, I think Allen's the 201, 202, and I think he and Johnson are in a clear tier together. Obviously, there's no guarantee they're going to trade a chain. But if they get the right offer, if someone offers a 27, I don't know, what's it going to take, a third, a fourth, a second? I don't know. Valuing NFL vets is so hard in trades because it always feels a little random to me. But if someone gives them the offer that they need to move off a chain after the draft, and Kaytron Allen is sitting there as a third-round draft pick, he's going to have the inside track to that job. At that point, this is a steal. But it's a heavily disclaimer that I need a star player to be traded in the NFL for this to become a pretty good pick. It's probably not going to be. It's probably just going to be a high-valued handcuff, which is fine.
All right, so on this trade here, or on this situation here, on this pick here, you don't need the trade either, though. Achane is on his rookie contract, and early news is they are not close on a contract extension. He wants money. They don't want to pay an RB. I wouldn't be very shocked to see him traded, if not in the draft, during the season, honestly. He's a very productive, good weapon, and it doesn't really make sense for them to allocate paying him when they could be doing a lot of other things, and honestly, this franchise needs to rebuild, unless Willis is somehow the answer. So I think that this actually has opened up my eyes to the fact that many people going to Miami could actually be a much better pick than I think it is off the bat, and that it might actually hide a value pick potentially. So this might be a sneaky landing spot that I like, not necessarily right away from day one production, but potentially later on in the season and definitely year 2 production. So our draft board in round 2. 201, Emmett Johnson to the Titans. 202, Germie Bernard to the Saints. 203, Nick Singleton to the Jaguars. 204, Skyler Bell to the Seahawks. 205, Antonio Williams to the Jets. 206, Sarratt to the Cowboys. 207, Max Klare to the Jaguars. 208, Demond Claiborne to the Vikings. 209, Nussmeier to the Cardinals. 210, Sam Roush to the Titans. 211, Jaydn Ott to the Texans. And 212, Kaytron Allen to the Miami Dolphins. So, decent round. There's a lot of players left on the board, and there's a lot of players we love. Mike Washington, Jonah Coleman. We have those guys going on the 1-2 turn before landing spots. And there's a lot of tight ends we like. There's still quarterbacks. Can't say we like them. We're going to go position by position a little bit and kind of talk honorable mentions, guys we have not drafted, starting with quarterbacks.
Yeah, Carson Beck, he could have gone to the end of the second with this landing spot because we don't know what's going on with Aaron Rodgers, and even if Rodgers does come back, it's probably going to be one more year, you would think. Who knows if he keeps coming back? But at least there is path for a day 2 pick here. Still not super excited because for fantasy purposes, he doesn't have the rushing upside. So not that exciting. But I want to even shout out like Drew. I want to shout out Cole Payton because he has high upside because of the rushing, and he has only 1 year starting, but it was a good year. And I think just behind a guy like Goff, I think that's pretty fun for a coaching staff that I think is good. So I'd at least take a flyer on him after the draft. I wouldn't take him in the 3rd round though here. But like Drew Aller, David, I know you'd probably be interested in taking a shot on him.
Yeah, and going to the Rams too. I love that landing spot for him. Gets at least a year to develop behind Stafford and offense we love. Now, 5th-round draft capital doesn't guarantee him anything, obviously. But if he were to develop and earn McVay's trust and get that shot to be the quarterback for a year, I mean, his value would skyrocket. So I think if you're going 4 rounds and this is how it plays out, I could see taking all these guys, but definitely Beck and Aller would be 4th-round picks for me.
Yeah, I love 4th round or 3rd round for Beck, potentially. Quarterback picks. Just the process we like, not wide receivers in the 5th round range.
Sorry, 3rd round, actually, I forgot we only did 2 rounds. They probably would have both ended up in the 3rd round, Peyton probably in the 4th based on this draft.
Running backs. Some guys were interested in pre-draft. Mucky landing spots. Washington. Coleman. Again, we talked a little bit about these guys, right? These 2 specifically. Coleman right now is a 1st rounder for us, right? He is a 1st rounder because we think he's going to get a spot. And honestly, Coleman in the 4th does not deter me from the 1-2 turn. But Coleman behind a tier 1 running back or tier 2 running back in the 4th. Same with Mike Washington behind a tier 1 running back. That's the deterrence, right? The deterrence is not, we think, 4th round or 3rd round is the problem. But if they're behind guys like this, I really am going to struggle to take them much earlier than the end of the 2nd, early 3rd. But they are near the top of my board now. Any other running backs we think are really interesting here?
Yeah, Le'Veon Moss to the Cowboys. There at least is a path. Javonte Williams was good, so I don't expect him to be a starter. But at least as a high-value handcuff for an offense that is typically in the top 10 in scoring. And who knows? I don't know that Javonte Williams is really their long-term answer. Like maybe Moss breaks in there a little bit. It's just more of an offense thing. You could say the same thing for Seth McGowan. It's a pretty good offense. It's Sean Payton. There's a couple of guys in the way, but J.K. Dobbins probably isn't super long to be there. So they're at least worth a draft pick.
Yeah, just real quick, I don't love Henry's profile at all, but it's an open backfield in Tennessee, so he's someone who would probably deserve to be drafted late 3rd, early 4th in this, with how this plays out.
It's not an open backfield because Emmett Johnson, my 201, is there. So get Emmett Johnson's name out of your mouth, David.
I love Emmett Johnson, my friend.
Moving on to wide receivers, a lot of guys here. I think personally, Chris Bell, 402, 2nd pick of the 4th round, I believe, to the Raiders. Absolutely, all day. This is a guy that I was considering at the 210. I almost fired it off there. But just between coming off of the injury and not being a day 2 pick, that was just too much for me to not take a round 2 tight end and tight end premium.
Yeah, I think other than Chris Bell, there's one player that I think might have a path to being like a team's wide receiver 2 this year. And that would probably be Ted Hurst. They brought in Jahan Dotson. That maybe he's something, but Ted Hurst, I know there's a lot of fans of him. I don't really want to draft these rookie wide receivers that are going day 3, but I could at least see a path for him having a little bit of a value gain just from having an opportunity as a rookie.
Yeah, and I probably should have pointed this out at the beginning. If you're an observant person, you'll notice there's no 5th round wide receivers. It just, we didn't have enough space for them on the graphic, and none of them were that exciting, so we didn't include them. But here we're talking about guys on the graphic. I think the one that stands out to me is probably Jacoby Lane. I don't love him as a prospect, but he is an early declared receiver. He's a big guy who has some electric highlight reel catches. And Tampa Bay needs a big outside receiver with Mike Evans leaving. I don't know exactly what they're going to do with Egbuka and Godwin, but they both thrive over the middle of the field. You get a big, tall guy who can stretch the field a little bit, go out for jump balls. I think there's a role in that offense for Lane. And if that ends up being a long-term role, then we're pretty happy taking a stab at him.
Just want to gloss over the round 2 guys. I think we all view this pick of Dazon Stribling as a kind of sacrificial X, he'd just be like a sacrificial X type of guy. He's not somebody that we really view as like a full route tree type of guy. Maybe he helps open up what Alec Pierce can do in the open field instead of just running more of those routes and let them use them a little more dynamically. And then Branch and Fields, we're just not really big believers on either of them, advanced metric-wise. If they get this draft capital, I think we're entertaining him in the 3rd. But realistically, I'm probably more likely to just let somebody else take them and have that push other value down to me. And one little thing you might have noticed is Deion Burks is listed twice. That second one is supposed to be Bryce Lance to the Patriots. I do just want to say I do not like the Patriots as a landing spot to an unpolished wide receiver. We've really seen that the coaching staff there is not interested in rookie wide receivers. They're not interested in rookies as far as giving them initial opportunity. So I think anybody that goes there that is not a polished player yet, I don't think is not NFL ready, I think is going to take long enough that I'm just going to avoid them and try to acquire them later. That being said, if there are NFL ready players, so if they're taking a earlier wide receiver, you have of course, guys we took in round 1, or honestly, if my boy Skyler Bell went there, I'd be pretty in. If there's a lot of guys that are, I think, more polished go there, I'd be very in, but somebody who only played D2 ball, I think I'd be avoiding there even with the good draft capital. Moving on to tight ends, couple guys here. Welp, anyone want to talk about Delp?
Oh yeah, Delp, super athlete, right? And capable blocker for the size, so he's probably going to get on the field, and there's a lot of upside. So if you give an upside guy an opportunity there with Carnell Tate, that's who he'd be with. He'd be Carnell Tate, and I think there's Greg Dulcich there or something. So definitely could be a starting tight end on a bad team that probably is going to pass the ball a good amount. So could at least see a value gain, because if you produce as a rookie, inherently you're going to increase in value there. So that one is pretty fun. I just want to say it's a sin for Justin Joly not to go top 5 rounds, and it's my guy. So I at least had to mention that.
Yeah, I think if you're in a 4-round rookie draft, 175 tight end premium, there's a case for all of these tight ends to go by the end of the 4th round. I don't love the landing spot, but I see a guy I've been high on this whole draft cycle sitting here, so I got to say his name. I like Michael Trigg. I like Mason Taylor. I don't think Taylor's going to ever be a great tight end, but I think he might be annoying enough that Trigg isn't able to be a great fantasy tight end. I don't know if he'll ever be one even without interference from another tight end, but if he wins the job, there's a lot of open targets on that team. There's not a whole lot of great pass catchers. Even if they end up with Antonio Williams in the early second, as they took in this draft, there's still going to be an opportunity to earn a bunch of targets. So if Trigg is the guy there, there's a path to success for him. So don't love the spot, but I can see a path to success there.
I also really like the landing spots for Royer and Raritan. I don't love the draft capital. If that was round 3, I'd be very excited about them being a potential next in line in those situations. But Goddard, Andrews, I don't think that they're very long for those situations, right? So I think anybody drafted in either of those spots, my ears perk up. I'm like, oh, there's a chance, right? They're more of a sleeper. They're more of a stash, right? 3rd, 4th round. But 3rd, 4th round in tight end premium, I am smashing tight ends. So love those spots as well. All right, so lots and lots and lots going on here. We have a wonderful 1st round. I don't think we are disappointed in anybody. Not going to read them all back, as we've said them a lot. And a 2nd round that is interesting, right? It feels a lot more like a 3rd round than it does a 2nd round, especially as we get later on. It feels very flat as well. So very interesting. We, I think, hope that the 1st round looks as good as it did, and that the 2nd round looks a little bit better post NFL draft. And I think we might find that both of those drift a little bit back more towards the mean. So thank you for joining us for another episode of the Dyno Construction Podcast. We hope you found this as helpful for you as it was for us. Please remember to like and subscribe wherever you listen and review. And from all of us here at the Dyno Construction Podcast, until next time.